What's up, everybody? This is MayorHawk, and we're back with another HawkVlog, and this time we're going to talk about comic book reboots. More specifically, does Marvel need a true reboot, or are they good with what they're doing with Legacy so far? So, first of all, let's talk a little bit about reboots. What is a reboot? So, a reboot is when you relaunch either one story or your entire comic line. You can really do anything in between, and to start over at the beginning of storylines. And really how comics can use that is to bring back in readers, get away from confusing storylines, or get back to your roots. So the most recent real notable reboot that comes to memory is obviously DC's New 52/Rebirth. So New 52 was a true harsh reboot, a relaunch of all their comics across the board, getting rid of their history basically with everyone except for Batman, and I think Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, also kept his, and everything else got a true reboot and went forward with the storylines from there, did really well. Then, of course, famously well, is the over-the-top amazingly well Rebirth, which brought back a lot of that 70-year history that DC had gotten rid of in favor of saying all their heroes only had 5 years of experience. Brought back in a lot of that history with Rebirth, bringing back a lot of the hardcore fans while keeping all the new fans that they got of New 52 and continuing on with those storylines. So it was amazing. So Marvel, for a lot of you who don't know, with their comic book line, is not doing near as stellar as DC at the moment. Now, that could change next week with the launch of some amazing storylines and just bringing people over with Legacy. Legacy has really just started this month, October, and so it's really hasn't been enough time to say whether or not Legacy has been a gigantic success or not. The early sales charts that I have seen, though, kind of hint to maybe not. And that to me is really sad because reading Legacy myself, the Generation one-shots, the Legacy #1 standalone event, and then the Legacy issues that are out so far, to me, everything I've read so far, which I've read Amazing Spider-Man, the Death of the Mighty Thor, issue 1, XMen, Gold and Blue, Mojo, Avengers World Collide, the crossover with Champions, all that's been really good. It's been really fun and good storylines. And of course, they're working on bringing back Steve Rogers as Captain America. Sam Wilson's going back to being the Falcon. And so there's a lot of really cool stuff going on in Marvel right now, but people aren't buying it. And why is that? So I think a lot of it is Marvel tried a lot of interesting things with their heroes, and I don't want them to stop doing that because some great things have came out of that. Jane Foster Thor, in my opinion, has been really cool. Now, I do complain that she took his name, not his title, and I'll get to that in a minute, but we also had Miles Morales Spider-Man, who's awesome, and that was really fun. I wasn't a big fan of the new Hulk, but that was just me. He wasn't bad, but I missed Bruce Banner, and Bruce Banner dying was really sad. So I feel like a lot of fans were just kind of lost in the jumble of all that, confusing storylines. But I think really the loss in sales was happening before that with Marvel, and it's just something that they're going to have to work on overcoming. And I do have complete faith that they will do so, but is Legacy truly the answer? So we've seen in the past with Marvel that they've had great success with rebooting. They rebooted, I think officially after the original Secret Wars, they rebooted individual lines, like X-Men got rebooted with giant-sized X-Men. It was a soft relaunch, kept a lot of their history, but brand new shakeup on the team, and that did phenomenally well. I mean, you can look back on that. It was a great time to be reading X-Men. And that brought in a lot of the heroes that people think of nowadays when they think of X-Men. And that's the power a good reboot can do for you. A relaunch, or even if it's a hard reboot where it's like, we're going to completely wipe the story, or a soft reboot where it's like, hey, we're going to acknowledge that happened, but it's going to be a big shakeup, normally in the form of an event, to explain it. If you just kind of slowly do it over time, you can lose the readers and they might not be aware of it. So I feel like the biggest issue for Marvel right now is the confusion around where to jump in. So with those who don't know, which it's amazed me of the comic book fans who aren't really that aware of Marvel Legacy. And I feel like that is a lot to do with the branding. Legacy, for every title that has the Legacy branding, it is the start of a new story. A place for you as the reader to jump in, and it should make sense to you. In some cases, you might want just a base understanding of who that hero is, which a quick Google search can give that to you. But a lot of cases, I really don't think you do. The ones that I feel like it is good to know what's been going on are really the Death of the Mighty Thor. Really helps to know what's been going on. X-Men Gold and Blue, a little bit, helps to know what's going on, because otherwise the team dynamic is a bit weird. And I really do think with Amazing Spider-Man, it helps to know at least that Peter Parker was rich for a little bit. Now, the storyline itself explains that, and so you understand why things are going bad for him again. But just knowing that, hey, Peter Parker, he was always down on his luck, he became a billionaire, and now we're here. And so just knowing that would help. You don't really need to even know the storyline or how he got there, but just knowing that happened to him kind of helps. But I think across the board, these books are really interesting. But readers don't know it's a good place to jump in. And that's because Marvel, unlike DC, when DC did New 52 and Rebirth, the branding was up at the top of the issue. DC Universe Rebirth, Batman, #1. And it made sense. Now, Legacy, going back to the Legacy numbering system, I think is cool. I really appreciate they're paying homage to their legacy. This is Amazing Spider-Man, like 789 or something like that. So that's really cool. But for and that's awesome for the hardcore fan, the fan that you're going to have anyway. But it's not as awesome for the casual fan that's like, oh, issue 789, did I have to read all other 788 for it to make sense? The answer is no. It's the start of a brand new story, but they don't know that. And that's something that I think for hardcore comic fans, that doesn't click to us that, hey, it's not obvious that this is a good place to jump in. And I think a good example of that is with Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows issue 11. I think it was The Curse of the Goblin or Return of the Goblin, something like that. It was a brand new storyline in Renew Your Vows. And so stuff that happened previous for that would get mentioned quickly, but it would also get explained so a new reader could hop in. You didn't read any of those previous 10 issues. It's explained enough that you can understand it, move forward with the new storyline. But your casual reader won't know that issue 11 was the start of a new story. And so the Legacy branding is supposed to tell them, hey, this is a new story. This is Marvel Legacy. You can jump in here. But I don't think that's clear. And I feel like part of that is lack of branding. Part of that is some of these storylines, they do feel like they're just continuing. It's not a true start of a new story like Death of the Mighty Thor. I feel like unless you're semi-aware of what's been going on with Jane Foster and her fight against breast cancer, amazing storyline. If you haven't been aware, then Death of the Mighty Thor, you're like, well, I wasn't really following her, and so am I interested in her death? And so I am. I think it's going to be an amazing story, and I feel like she's been a very compelling hero. And one of the good things going on with all Marvel's shakeup of heroes, in my opinion, like the opposite, the bad one would definitely be evil Steve Rogers. I wasn't a fan of that personally. I want him to be my hero. Captain America has always been one of my favorite heroes, so for him to go evil was a bit hard to swallow. Kind of felt the same way when Cyclops killed Xavier, so that was another one that was just kind of hard to swallow. And it's just doing stuff like that is bad, but I feel like Jane Foster was one of the good things. She was a really compelling hero, good shake-up to the Thor run, but my only downside of that, and it's been hard for me to get past at times, is she took his name. She didn't take a title. She took his name. He was Thor. He was born Thor, not Odin's son. He was Thor, the Odin's son, Thor, god of thunder, but they took his name. He was no longer Thor. He was just Odin's son, and that was hard, because it's like, no, Thor wasn't a title until now. Thor was always his name. When Beta Ray Bill picked up the hammer and was worthy, he didn't become Thor. He got the power of Thor. He had all of Thor's abilities, but he wasn't Thor. He was still Beta Ray Bill. And Thor was still Thor, even when Beta Ray Bill was holding his hammer before he got his own. And so it was this, like, hey, the precedent's been set before that picking up his hammer didn't take his name away until now. And maybe that's just something Marvel was going with. Thor was now a title. And that was just, that was a bit weird to me. And that almost lost me, but I gave it a chance, and it was a great run. And I feel like a lot of people, when it almost lost me, it did lose a lot of people. And so Marvel's seen their sales numbers not be great. Now, Legacy, it just started in October. So really, we're still in October. It could still turn out to be this amazing relaunch, and this video is unnecessary. But the initial sales charts would suggest that the Legacy branding didn't give Marvel the shot in the arm that Rebirth did for DC and New 52 did for DC. And so I think a lot of that is, like with Secret Wars, Marvel Marvel did a kind of reboot-ish. They took Ultimate Marvel and the canon Marvels, or 616, and merged them together. No longer these two separate stories all into one. And that got really confusing for readers because it was like, why are there two Spider-Man? Why is there female Thor? Why is all this stuff different? And what was still in so-and-so's history? How did they get over here? And there's just been kind of like some continuity issues since then that I feel like has scared away your casual reader. Because confusion for readers is always bad. The same thing that keeps people out of movie-going seats, keeps people from buying comic books. And it's if they feel like, I'm not going to understand the story, they don't want to read it, they're not going to spend their money. If they're like, I don't know who these characters are and why I should care, they're definitely not going to buy it and they won't even listen. And also, if they're like, I'm worried that you're just going to get rid of this. Like, we did this little soft reboot. You got rid of Marvel, like Ultimate Marvel that I was reading about and cared about, shoved into this universe I wasn't reading. I'm talking hypothetically. I wasn't just reading Ultimate Marvel. But then it all got mumbled jumbled. I didn't know what mattered anymore. So is it just going to go away again? So I feel like what Marvel needs to do, and it might be what they're trying to do with Legacy, is a kind of soft relaunch. Say, like, some heroes I feel like do need a reboot now. And those ones, I feel like XMen has gotten muddled. And I feel like in order for the X-Men comics to really do well again, and not saying that they're doing bad, I think they're actually one of their better ones, though, but in order for it to reach the heights that it did in the 90s again, if that's even possible, is to bring back Xavier. Now, I feel like who's on the X-Men can kind of ebb and flow. Like, there's classic ones like Iceman and Cyclops and Jean Grey that everybody always affiliates them with X-Men. But I feel like you can put just about anyone on the X-Men so long as Xavier is around, because he is the headmaster of the school, and most people don't consider them X-Men without Xavier. So I feel like returning Xavier in a way that makes sense, especially with all that stuff about Red Skull having his brain at this point, is not going to be easy to do in a way that readers will buy. So I feel like in order to get him back, you do need a reboot to do so. But I don't like the way Marvel has done these soft relaunches in the past, like giving us the classic X-Men team, sorta. They brought back the past, like young Cyclops, young Jean Grey, young Iceman, but we still had, like old Iceman and all this stuff. And so it was just confusing. Like, it was kind of like talking about Spider-Man. You can't say Spider-Man anymore. You have to say Peter Parker Spider-Man or Miles Morales Spider-Man. And I really like Miles as a character, and his storylines have been great. But that just creates reader confusion, which is what Marvel, I think, needs to eliminate with some soft reboots. I don't feel like it's good to throw out all this story now. Like, I don't think it would, even though I didn't love it, I don't think it would be good to completely throw away Secret Empire or Civil War II or Secret Wars, because those were your past big events now. And so don't get rid of it. Don't throw away that complete history, but have another event possibly surrounding the Infinity Stones, because, hey, that's going on in your movie verse right now, and so that's going to get a lot of attention. So do something with the Infinity Stones and a soft relaunch that brings back heroes people love, without deleting this history. So it can still be talked about, can still be mentioned. Like, hey, Steve, remember that time that there was an evil version of you? Yeah, vaguely I do, but blah, blah, blah. But, it's just, I don't think you want to delete that history, because as we saw in DC, that was what kept away a lot of hardcore fans from New 52, was all those years of reading comic books was out the window. But at the same time, you can't scare away new readers. I feel like people do want to read Marvel. Look at all the people who are lining up to go to the Marvel movies. Marvel fandom is there. They're just confused when it comes to the comic books. And so that's why a reboot for Marvel, I think, individual storyline reboots could work. You could save individual stories. But really, in order to bring people into reading the entire thing proper again, I feel like an across-the-board soft relaunch would be good. Bring back Steve Rogers as Captain America, Sam Wilson as Falcon, which is what they're working towards with Legacy, but I feel like them trying to do it is like, hey, it's just a natural progression for these guys. I don't think that's going to bring back the readers. They're not going to realize, hey, this is a spot I can jump in because it's a continual story. If you do it with like DC did, hey, here's Flashpoint. Now it's New 52. If Marvel was to do like, hey, here's like if an apocalyptic event with the Infinity Gems, and at the end of it, here's our new world again. But I'm torn on it because it's really close to after Secret Wars, and I feel like that's what Secret Wars should have done for us, is bring back some of these classic, like, and you did ish. You got back Steve Rogers Captain America. He turned out to be evil Captain America. But I feel like now we need that for real Z relaunch, bring back the heroes we love, and things will be good again. If you agree with me, you can let me know down in the comments below. If you think I'm dumb, if you're like, no, Marvel is in a great place, you just got to give it time, let me know that down in the comments down below. You can follow me on Twitter at HawkVlog1. I'd love to continue the discussion with you there. This is MayorHawk. Please drop that like button, hit that like button, and drop a subscribe if you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Peace!